So I'd like to bring the study session together. Just for the record, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. Spend a little bit of time on a Thursday evening when the weather's so nice. At least the wind isn't too bad yet. It'll be worse. All the board members are here for the record, Monica. This is the Thursday meeting that we have prior to the board meeting to go over the agenda and get any questions that we may have prior to Tuesday night's meeting. Hopefully we can get them answered now rather than have to do it on the dais on Tuesday. So that's why we're trying this. This is probably the third time, I believe. We still, every once in a while, have questions from the dais on Tuesdays, and that's I think that'll still continue to happen. But at least it's a way for us to have conversation with you folks prior to Tuesday and having to do it in front of everybody. And I think it works better. At least I like it. I have to poll the rest of the board and see if they enjoy this. But anyway, let's get started. So Tuesday, there's going to be a special meeting, executive session. It'll be contract negotiations. Those are the CT, are the certified and the classified and everybody's stuff. So we'll be talking about that stuff in executive session. Does anybody have any questions about that? I don't really have any answers. I just know that it's going to be on the agenda for.
Is that for an individual or a group of?
No, it's for the actual negotiations. They're going to come in. They're going to come in.
With the union?
Yeah, Sean's going to come in and tell us where we're at with the negotiations and give us some scenarios of how it's going to be, how it plays out if we do this, if we do that, if we do that, we do this. So it'll be that'll happen on Tuesday, right, Sean? Yeah. Okay. So then at 5 o'clock we'll do a study session for turnaround, and Mrs. Medler's going to be here. Lisa Medler will be here to give us an update at 5 o'clock. So, yeah, between 5 and 5:15, depending on how long Sean keeps us in the back. So, we'll get some news from Lisa as to where we're at. Then we'll get into our regular meeting. We'll have the call to order. Any discussion about the call to order, pledge of allegiance, moment of silence, or roll call? Then we'll have the approval of the minutes. So if you notice, we have two sets of minutes, April 5th and April 10th. Hopefully you will have looked at them and we can approve them. I don't believe there's a need to approve the agenda or to amend the agenda this week. I think it'll just be the agenda that we're presenting here. So is there any discussion about the approval of the agenda?
There are several things that I had hoped would be on the agenda. A month or so ago, I had requested of the board to look into a number of things, either Tuesday or at the last meeting, and so far they haven't turned up. One was a request that I had made to look into the Lester Arnold High School budget. They had some questions and so forth, and I thought a study session is an opportunity to discuss some of those things. We did it with Adams City High School, and it seems to me we ought to give the same opportunity to Lester Arnold High School. That was one thing. I also think that it's within the purview of the board to come up with a literacy program, and I wanted to make a motion regarding Literacy Squared, but I've asked to have that on the agenda, and we haven't been able to get it on the agenda. A third thing is that we've talked about how we establish and structure subcommittees or advisory committees, and Mr. Thomas, I think, is correct in saying that is, again, a board function, and it's the board that ought to decide in loose terms, in rough terms, what kind of committees we set up, what the membership should be, and so forth. But we so far haven't had any of that discussion. And a fourth thing that I'd like to see on the agenda is more specificity regarding the purpose of executive sessions. I did ask just, apparently on Tuesday night, it's going to be about contract negotiations from CTA. But in general, I think often there is very little specificity as to the purpose of executive sessions, except all we do is we quote the subparagraph in the Colorado Revised Statutes. But I won't read it here now, but essentially it says that we owe it to the public to give as much detail as possible regarding the purpose for the executive session, but limiting it to but not going so far as to give away details as to what it actually is. So, for example, it is appropriate to say we're going into an executive session to examine the subcontract with ABC. And so the public and everybody else knows that that's the reason we're going into executive session. It is not appropriate to talk about the details of that subcontract and so forth. And I feel fairly strongly about that because at the last meeting, it was to talk about, to give legal advice. And in fact, the topic was something that I had an activity of mine. And as when the board takes up in executive session a personnel matter, that person has the right to say whether they want to have it in public or in private. And if I had known that they were going to be talking about me, I would have requested a public airing of that conversation. So just for the record, except where it's noted, such as for next Tuesday, I am going to not attend executive sessions unless they give adequate specificity to the purpose for which they're being held. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go. So then we'll get into audience comments. And then we'll have a superintendent's report. This month is not the month that we normally have a superintendent's report, but we will, this meeting. But we will have a superintendent's report because we need to hear what's going on with
We have invited the CD to come in,
Right.
Lisa Medler.
Right. Thank you. Any questions about that? And then there's a correction under routine items. If you look at it, we need to correct that. Last meeting, there was an employee who was, let me get to my notes here, who was actually was appointed to the position, not resigned the position, and it was under resignation last month, so we've got to correct that last meeting, we've got to correct that this meeting.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman, doesn't that, I thought, looking through this, that correction was made?
Correction was made, yes.
Okay, thanks.
But we still have to do it.
Okay, gotcha.
We still have to approve it. So then we'll move on to business. So the first business we have is approval to apply for the Early Literacy Assessment Tool Project, ELT grant, from the Colorado Department of Education. I think that's Sheila, correct? Any questions about that, anybody? No?
So can we keep these short, but could you just give me a real quick summary of what it is, what you expect it to do? Is this a annual thing? Is this a one-time thing? Let's just real brief.
Yep, so it's a ELAT grant from the Department of Education, and we're applying for this on behalf of some of the assessment tools that we're using for our early literacy programs, such as Dibbles, EDEL, and we want to help with the grant to pay for the cost of those assessments. So we'd like to apply for the district on behalf of our elementary schools for our K-3 programs.
So this is new.
This is it's not a new grant. I believe it was offered last year. But we are looking to apply for it this year because right now some of the funding comes out of different sources, such as our READ Act grant. Some of it is picked up under title, some of it comes out of general fund, and we would like to apply for the grant so it will cover the cost of those sources for our assessments.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Burke? So we'll move on to 1.2, Superintendent's recommendation, approval to apply for the Gifted Education Universal Screening and Qualified Personnel Grant to support gifted and talented identification and programming from the Colorado Department of Education. I believe this is Katie. So does anybody have any questions for Katie?
I don't.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. So then we have a resolution under 2.0, Superintendent's recommendation, resolution number 18-003, approving the Intergovernmental Agreement for Education Access Programming with the City of Commerce City. This will be Janelle and Cameron. This is the one that we took off so Jonathan could look at the franchise agreement to make sure that it was all in order and we weren't going to be so it's going to be up for approval on Tuesdays. Anybody have any questions?
And we do have Michelle from the city here to answer any questions.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello, sir.
So I had one question, and I think we all had the same question, and maybe Cameron can answer this question because we'll be going to our own TV channel. Is that gonna put too much of a burden on you, Cameron, for handling what needs to be handled if we have our own channel?
No, we've looked at it carefully, and it's not a substantial change in the amount of time that will be required by me. And the reason for that is historically what we have been putting on the TV channel for the city has been their city council meetings. They provide that to us basically on tape, and I put that in. The city's also provided us with about 5 or 6 slides every couple of months that we include in our bulletin board of slides. So there's not much content that the city has provided in the past that we're going to be losing. Actually, I view it as a really good opportunity for us to kind of rebrand the channel and make a commitment to having our own TV channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So then I did have another question. Jonathan, I think there was 2 things you needed to look at to make sure they were in the document. Did they get added in, Janelle?
Yes, we've made the additions that are the clarifications that Jonathan wanted, and even previous to that, Holly Ortiz had some suggestions, and we made those too.
And that was okay with the city also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think for the record, and it's okay to talk about this here, I think there was one issue about a provision in there that could be construed as an indemnification clause. Is that right, Janelle? The city did not agree 100% with the edit that we had proposed. The agreement as it's written, as is, still states as allowed by law, and just so everyone is clear on the record, the school district may not indemnify anyone, including the city of Commerce City. So, that they're not allowed to do that by law. So I don't think there's a problem with the agreement as is drafted.
That's correct. We both are local government entities, and we don't indemnify anybody, including each other. So.
Perfect. Does anybody else have any questions for them? Thank you.
And thank you for your consideration on Tuesday.
And Board President, can I just say, I know that we have visitors here. Once they present, they don't have to stay for the whole thing, am I correct? If she
Correct.
wanted to leave? Okay.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to 3.0, Superintendent's Recommendation, Approval to Purchase Professional Development for Teacher Resources from School Cubed. I believe this is Aricelia. Katie, I think you have one more, don't you? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Any questions?
No, we kind of get back into some of the same issues that we've talked about earlier in the year with professional development. And I don't know too much about School Cubed, but it does mention research on effective schools. And, one of my concerns is, how do these people have answers to what makes an effective school? I think, for one, I have a hard time knowing whether, let's say, $100,000 put into professional development is going to raise student scores more than if we put $100,000 into Chromebooks, or if we put $100,000 into community outreach. And I have a sense that over the past number of years, the district uses kind of a salt and pepper approach. You kind of sprinkle money for professional development, sprinkle money for Chromebooks, and so forth, without knowing where what would be most effective. And that, to me, is a nagging problem. And I think that's one of the reasons Adams 14 is where it is that we've used the sprinkle effect for quite a few years here, not knowing how effective a particular strategy might be. And so I have a very pointed question in terms of School Cubed. Are they going to share research, either national research or their research or any research, on what makes a school an effective school?
Okay, so I want to ease some of your concerns regarding Schools Cubed and an additional one that's coming up. Anything that we use READ Act monies for, has to be specific to the vendors they have vetted through their system. So any professional development that you will use funding for from the READ Act, any interim assessments that you're going to use using READ Act dollars, any interventions you're going to use have to be vetted through them. So Schools Cubed was vetted through CDE. It is on the list of the recommended individuals to provide professional development. Outside of the list that's provided by CDE, I cannot venture. So yes, to answer your question, if you look at the contract, I'm sure that it'll be attached for them to look at. It was updated. It's very specific to everything that's going to be covered in each session. It is research-based. It has to be research-based because otherwise it would not have been approved by.
I did not get a contract to provide
Okay.
to the board.
I apologize.
So I think that would be a good question to ask Ms. Medler when she comes here next week. And then also, we have, this I understand is something that we were planning for next fall, is that right? When is this taking, begins in September? And I still have a concern about coverage. For if the teachers, or a lot of this has to do with coaching of principals, does it involve teachers? And if so, what do you have in place to make sure that we don't have to double up or have split classes?
This program is specific to our building administrators, the assistant principals, and the coaches. It does not involve the teachers. The classroom observations that are going to be made, so there's going to be professional development, then it's going to be followed up by walkthroughs where implementation or monitoring that implementation will take place. It'll be followed, there's 6 sessions. Session 2, once again, you meet with the building principals, you develop that plan, they come through the following month for implementation. So it's something that's going to be closely monitored. It's about making sure that our building principals understand what that instruction should look like based on the READ Act and the recommendations made by the Colorado Department of Education. So there will not be a substitute problem.
Okay, great. So we should really ask CDE next Tuesday.
That's fine. And actually, we do have someone from CDE here, from READ Act, providing professional development in the next room. So hope maybe if we're still here, she can address some of these concerns as well. In the community room. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I think the next one might be mine too.
Yeah, Superintendent's recommendation, approval to purchase resources for Kagan, from Kagan Publishing and Professional Development. Are there any questions about that?
Is there anybody that could address the overlap between, let's say, Kagan and the responsive classroom materials?
Okay, so there is, they do overlap. It is not one size fits all. So what we're looking at is meeting the needs of the whole child. The morning meetings, which is what we're adopting from the responsive classroom, is to set the tone for the day and to have restorative practices in the classroom when there's discipline. Kagan engages the student in their learning. It makes them an active learner in what is being taught. So it,
So, okay.
so they
talk
go
versus
hand in hand, they're
behavior.
not separate. Just like when we implement PBIS, that provides students incentives to stay in the straight and narrow. So they go hand in hand. They're not in isolation, they intertwine.
Okay. Are you good, Dr. Hyde?
Yes, I am, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Mr. Rowland, you good?
Yeah.
Harvest, you good? All right. Ms. Quintana?
I'm fine.
Okay. 3.3, Superintendent's recommendation, approval to purchase professional development for teacher resources from Strive. And it's you again.
Yes. So, we have Schools Cubed at the administrative level to provide them the professional development so that they can monitor what is happening in the classroom to make sure that the needs of the students are being met. Strive is more at the teacher level. It is what an effect, and it also I want you to know that they're an approved vendor from CDE's READ Act. They've been vetted through that department. It provides teachers with the professional development they need so that workstations and small group instruction is functioning in an effective manner. So this is more the trainer model that we're applying for, or that we're requesting here, where our coaches, instructional coaches at each building K-5 will be providing in the future that professional development. So they'll be given the professional development along with a couple of teachers' leads. This is outside of your regular school week. This is on a Saturday. And then they will, Debbie will coach them regarding, in other words, she'll stand by. They'll deliver that professional development to the teachers, and she'll be there to coach them along to make sure that everything's in place. So it's the trainer model so we can have sustainability beyond Debbie Hunsaker through Strive.
I do have a question.
Yes.
You're saying the training in the school year is 17-18 from K to 5 teachers. Since the school year is out, how many training sessions would that'll be this year?
This year, we've had 2 full Saturdays, 2 Fridays for our coaches and teachers, and it wasn't mandatory on a Saturday for teachers.
So,
You're talking about this present school year?
no, see in here, in superintendent recommendation, in second sentence, it says training in school year 2017-18 for K through 5 teachers included effective implementation. So that's what my question was, since it's already August, not August, it's April. How many training sessions are they gonna provide from 2017-18? Since it's saying are we paying for this today, or we already paid for it last school
That was
year?
already previously approved, and I believe our last professional development was this last Saturday. What was that, the 14th? Yes. I guess the way it was written is, we started and this work is going to continue, but instead of being at the teacher level, it's going to be at train-the-trainer level, where the coaches are now going to provide the professional development for the teachers in the school year 18-19
So,
and thereafter.
So this shouldn't even be in here, training in the school, the 17,
Right.
18. That shouldn't even be in here then.
I guess we're just trying to make sure you have all the information you need. So, but I guess it could foggy things up, so I apologize for that.
Anything else, Harvest?
So are you requesting for that language to be removed?
No,
Are you good then, Harvest?
yes.
Okay, anybody else? So now moving on to 3.4, Superintendent's recommendation, approval of out-of-state travel to Austin, Texas to attend the Early Childhood Professional Learning Institute on June 10th through the 13th, 2018. I believe this is Karen.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Anybody have any questions?
How much of this focuses on best practices versus training trainers to do their training?
So this institute is provided for university professors, for lecturers, and for people who work in the school district who are trainers. So they have specific, like they'll have a full day on STEM activities that you can do. So it's really focused on the people who are doing the training of teachers. So does that answer
Okay,
your
all
question?
right, okay, that's good enough.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you, Karen. I think you're up again.
I am.
Superintendent's recommendation approval for an additional .5 table of authorized personnel for a full-time administrative secretary at Sandville Preschool.
And that's because Joanne retired. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yes.
And she's
So-
only 0.5.
She's only 0.5, and
Yeah.
we really need somebody full-time there.
I know.
You have it's approval for an additional half
Yes,
for a full-time. So you currently have an administrative secretary who's half-time, and you
Yes.
want to make her full-time.
right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Let's move on to 3.6, Superintendent's recommendation, approval to purchase Chromebooks for Central Elementary using Title I funds. Ms. Burke. So are there any questions for Ms. Burke about that one?
The 50 Chromebooks, what level of saturation will that give you at Central?
Tell me a little bit more so I make sure I answer your question.
So, is this an augmentation of, do they already have some Chromebooks there?
Yes, so Central's already used some of their title funds to purchase Chromebooks. In addition, they have some from the district's initiative around Beyond Textbooks that's already gone out, so this would be in addition to that.
So, I mean, is the long-term goal to reach 100%, or what's
So the long-term goal
what's the
for,
long-term goal? Where are we now, and what does this do to move us from where we are to where we want to be?
so I believe they're about 75% full between what they've purchased with their title funds and from the district initiative around Beyond Textbooks. This would service grades 3 through 5, and some second graders, they're looking at using some of their title funds for the 18-19 school year to purchase iPads, as that's more age appropriate for our kinder first grade students. Chromebooks are not as age appropriate for our little ones.
So will we want other purchases as well in the future?
Yes, so they're looking at their data to determine their needs, and part of that is through their UIP process that they're currently going through and looking at using their funds to leverage into their areas of need, and that they determined that technology was a need for them.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Ms. Burke? Thank you, Sheila.
Welcome.
Moving on to 3.7, Superintendent's recommendation, approval to purchase laser engraver for the Career and Technical Education Program. Mr. Duran.
I was getting ready to say good morning. I didn't realize what time it was already. Good evening. Any questions?
Is this, do they have a engraver now?
Not an engraver, not a laser engraver. So right now they're using machines that build out like cut through metal, and they're building small parts and accessories to use in the workplace. But a laser engraver would allow us to expand on what we're doing. So we recently had a tour of the facility of the machine that we're looking at building or buying, and the machine that we're looking to build or to buy is essentially it allows the students to really take the approach to design it on a computer and then put it into an actual laser engraver and build the actual tool or device that they want to essentially build. One of the ideas that I have for using the laser engraver is to be able to partner with our sports and clubs to take raw material that they have for ideas for fundraising, giving it to our advanced manufacturing students in the machine tool program, and then allow them to take raw material, design what they would like to sell as a fundraiser, and then give it back to the club to help raise money for their particular club, with the intent of being able to, one, supply the cost of the material, plus giving some money back to the kids that built the program, thus being able to create what does it look like to take raw material and build out an actual product that they can actually sell. So right now we don't have that capacity to do that, so the laser engraver will allow us to build on that capacity for our students in the advanced manufacturing program.
Does this represent a substantial addition to the Career and Tech Education Department, or is this, what in terms of, because I don't know anything about the Career and Technical Education Department, whether they've got lots of equipment and so forth, and this is just a small addition, or is this a big deal for the department? How does it fit into their capabilities right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most important things to consider is a lot of the machinery that's currently in the machine tool shop. Some of this machinery was given to us or we purchased back in the late 50s and 60s. So I think as we continue to think about expansion and opportunities for students to grow with industry, it's important that we're looking at how do we modernize some of our machinery that kids are having access to. So the machines that they see, you'll see in in the industry. But what we're looking at is how do we modernize what we're doing with our kids so that way they're more equipped with the 21st century skills that they need to be able to go into the workforce and see some of the machinery and the type of machines that they're using in industry. Because ultimately, yes, those machines are still in practice, but as we look at, technology and as it continues to advance, kids need to have access to more modernized machinery and equipment.
I'd like to ask your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that the department needs to shift from the industrial age to the electronic age in terms of its machinery?
I think as we think about, advancement in technology, I can buy a piece of hardware, right? I look at my cell phone and I can buy a cell phone today, and then tomorrow the next best thing is coming out, right? So I think as we look about how do we plan for the future, how do we continue to give students the opportunity to have access to technology that they know will eventually be in industry as they transition out of high school and move into industry.
Okay.
Right? Any other questions?
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to 3.8, Superintendent's Recommendation Approval of Security Equipment Purchase, Gianni and Dan. Hi, Mr. Thompson.
Hello. Yes, there, for full disclosure, there's an error to purchase 3. It should say 2, and we'll get that corrected for the next, for Tuesday's meeting. It's actually 2 cards.
Here's a tough question for you. What's a club car?
A golf cart. These are for
Okay.
security.
Literally, a club car,
Yeah.
okay.
That's just a brand.
So, and this is so security can zoom around the outside or the inside?
Outside.
Okay,
Yeah.
not down
Each
the hallways.
middle school covers approximately 15 acres, and so that's a lot of territory for one security guard to cover. Also, there's incidences that occur outside of the school area, such as the young man who got hit by the vehicle about 3 blocks away on 64th and just over there by the cemetery. The security guard ran over there. So
This is great.
just to make it more safer for our employees, make it quicker access to get kids when they're needed for emergency reasons.
Will these club cars be, God, what do I want to say the word is, will they be so they can run on the streets if they have to run down somebody, have signal lights, stoplights?
No, they won't have stoplights and signals, although they will be reinforced for the suspension on the tires for up and down curbs. So the traditional golf cart has turf tires that are made for the grass, and those get worn out really fast on the sidewalks or on the blacktop.
So they would be on the sidewalk?
Yeah, it could be on the sidewalk, yes.
Because I was just asking because, I think the city of Commerce City passed policy where seniors can go ahead and drive club cars or these golf carts as long as they're meets all the safeties.
I can look into that, and they could always be modified, for sure.
Can you change that plus 283 to $283? Which including the freight of 14,000. They just have.
Just put a $sign on there? Okay. Yep. Take care of that as well.
Anything else?
Is this a time where we could talk about other security things, or are we just gonna stay with the club cars?
Can we talk about it after? This is just the club cars. This is just a superintendent's rec on the club car.
Okay.
So let me put that down for other security.
And Board President, I think Dr. Hyde had a question on literacy, and he said it may be a question for Lisa to answer, but it really is not for Lisa. There's a lady here, Alex Frazier, and she might be able to answer his question because it's not a question for Lisa. It would be for someone who's here today.
So that's, so that was professional development for teacher resources from School Cubed. and teacher resources from Strive.
Go help her.
Hi, I'm Alex Frazier from the Office of Literacy at the Colorado Department of Education, and I happen to be training in the building right now. So I heard there's a question around literacy and redact, so I'm happy to answer if I'm able.
Let's see, this was 3.1, is it?
Yes. So this one is purchase of development, professional development for teacher resources from School Cubed.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a question about School Cubed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my question had to do with research into effective schools. And I wanted to know to what extent, I can't find it on here, but at any rate, to what extent this delves into the research on effective schools.
Yeah, you got it. So every PD provider or program or assessment that is provided on any of our advisory lists have all gone through a review process next to a strenuous rubric and met with multiple committees to make sure that they meet the requirements to be aligned with REDACT, which calls for scientifically and evidence-based reading products and training.
Who would I speak to get some of that literature?
Myself, because that's where I
Okay.
work. But you can also call our office. Marisa Calzadias is our program coordinator. And if you go to our, right in our homepage, there's a Contact Us page, and all information is there, as well as a list of things that we have reviewed that have not met that criteria. So we have very transparent information on what's been reviewed, how many times it's been reviewed, and whether it's been approved or not approved for assessment, intervention, core programming, supplemental programming, EL programming, and professional development.
So I could get the literature through your website.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? And is your name Frazier?
Yes, it is.
F-R-A-Z-I-E-R.
F-R-A-Z-I-E-R.
Z, okay.
You bet.
So could I contact you if I have trouble getting to some of that
Sure.
information?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Just so Alex is also going to be training our Janelle Fuller, our people at ESS, so that they can be providing that reading foundations, which she's presently providing to a group of teachers in the community room.
That way you all can build capacity and sustainability right here in your district versus having somebody have to come in and continue to provide that professional development. Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Alex.
Been working very closely together.
That answer your questions, Dr. Hyde?
For now, yes, thanks.
So now we'll move on to 3.10, Superintendent's recommendation. Superintendent's asking for approval of an advisory council on English language development. This is a committee that, I'll let you explain it.
On this one.
Which one?
I think I have time here to,
Security cameras.
Oh,
we have
well,
we have
go
time
back.
here to,
Sorry, I had one marked off that I wasn't to yet.
are we on the right one?
No, I'm on 3.9, sorry. Superintendent's recommendation, approval of security camera system purchase.
I thought I was out of line. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
sorry, my fault.
you're fine.
You gave a fairly full briefing, I thought, at the last time or two ago. Has anything changed
No,
since that time?
that is still moving forward with the funds from the 17-18 camera security system to continue to improve the existing systems that we have. It'd be an ongoing.
Is these just cameras that the Board of Education approved, I believe, over a year ago?
Yes, this is the leftover from that budget then.
And how many is that?
The current agreement for what's left here, I think we were able to purchase an additional 50 cameras, and I'm just going off of memory. And that being IP, and then I believe 16 DVRs, and the rest of them being UPSs.
So, I'm confused, help me out a little bit. The cameras we talking about, you trying to do an RFP on, is the cameras that the Board of Education approved over a year ago, that's in the warehouse. That right?
No, those have been installed. This is the leftover monies that, those cameras that you approved have been installed. This is the carryover from that board recommendation of $33,000 of the original improvement to continue to purchase additional cameras with that to continue to move that project forward. So with the monies that was given, there's not enough monies each year to do the district-wide camera replacement. So we keep phasing in the cameras that continue to fail because of their life cycle and take those cameras and go out and replace them.
So these cameras here is for, I'm lost.
These cameras that we're asking for currently right now is from our capital outlay. We had some carryover monies, $33,000 from the first approval of the board to purchase, and I want to say it was around $136,000, $160,000. It's been so long, but anyway, we took and purchased all those cameras and MVRs, went out and took care of the current need with those funds. Then as the year went by, we were discovering additional cameras starting to fail, so now we're here asking to spend the remainder of that $33,000 that was in our capital outlay to continue to address the cameras and NVRs that are life cycling out.
So it's the same money.
Same money.
It would just either be returned back or you're
Right.
asking now to
Yeah,
just continue on.
otherwise, you know, it will go into reserve, not capital reserve, but the district reserve, and then we'll ask for it, you know, allocate it in December again.
But this is a RFP to install the cameras. This doesn't say to purchase any cameras. Help, if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
This says
It shouldn't say that. It should say to purchase cameras.
that's why I'm confused at. It doesn't say, I don't see how many cameras on here. I just says to install cameras. So that's what I think the confusion for me is at.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I may overlook that when we grabbed it, because none of them have ever been for install. It's always been for purchasing equipment only, to install.
So the first cameras, help me out. The first cameras that the Board of Education approved last year from the capital reserves,
Yep,
it's up. They all in the buildings, right?
that's correct.
But you didn't give us a RFP to put those cameras up in the buildings. But now I see a RFP in front of me to put cameras up. So that's why I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, no, the word install here shouldn't be on this security camera. We'll get that correct. It is to purchase the equipment only. So the equipment that you approved for us to get in July, we got in and have put in throughout the district the failing equipment. This is still just to purchase equipment. It'll be purchasing 50 IP cameras and NVRs and battery backups.
So I would like to pull this off the agenda till we get the right one.
Okay.
Because this is not the right one.
And will there be an additional expenditure for installation?
No, we've been doing it with in-house employees.
Got that, Monica? We'll remove 3.9.
So I think if you read the first line here, it says to purchase the components needed to install security cameras. So I just want to clarify that that's what we're doing, is we're buying the components to install, as not to buy installation. So at the very top of the line there, it says to purchase the components needed to install security camera systems. So those components are the cameras, the NVRs, and the battery backups. What I can do is provide a list of the RFP that lists the equipment that's going to be purchased for us to install. It's to buy the components needed to do the installation, not to purchase the installation.
I'm confused because it seemed like I'm confused because you said the cameras that the district purchased last year, your team put them up.
That is correct.
But now, so then I asked, how many cameras was left from the 50?
No, this is the new 50 cameras that we're needing to purchase. This RFP would be an additional 50 cameras. The cameras that were purchased on the last RFP have all been installed. They are installed in the schools.
Monica, can you find the Board of Education, the RFBP, for the maintenance to install the other cameras? Because I haven't seen it. Because if you need this to install the components for cameras, you'd need the same thing for the other cameras you done, the components.
This isn't a request to install, this is a request to purchase cameras.
Purchase 50
We're just
additional
purchasing the components being cameras, NVRs, and battery backups.
He stated that the cameras purchased are installed in-house.
Correct. But he needed a RFVP for the last one.
That's correct.
And that's why I'm asking if he needed a RFVP for the last cameras to do it, to what he done. I don't remember us getting one. So
Sure you did.
if you needed one for the first ones and you need one for this one, where's the first one at for the first cameras that should have been done? That's what my question is. If you did A and now you're trying to do B, where's the A? Because I don't remember us approving anything like this before. The components.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
see. Did y'all get that? You finance.
You know, my guess is that the way this is worded is it's saying this is the components needed to install instead of this is the components which will be installed. Like, so I believe you did approve, was that about a year ago, the other cameras, and then now this is a second batch of cameras using the leftover money, which they're requesting to.
Well, I like to see that, the RFPP and the contract, because you would needed a contract if you're sending out an RFPP to do the installation, right?
It wasn't an installation, it was just for the equipment, but we do have an RFP and we do have board approval on that contract.
Well, I want to see the contract, because I'm keeps it.
So what we're saying is, for the example that I'm trying to provide, is say that first RFP was for $160,000, okay? So when, at that time, you know, it's our best guess of what the equipment's gonna come in at. The equipment came in at, say, $100,000. That left over $60,000 to carry over to continue to do additional installations, or, because anything over $15,000, anytime I spend anything over $15,000, I have to come and get approval. So with the purchase that we're using now is to take the additional cameras, or the additional need of the $30,000, there's $33,000 left in that capital fund, to take $30,000 of it here to continue to buy cameras, NVRs, and battery backups to continue to support that. Now, the district has over, I want to say, and I'm just going to hypothetically guess it, I want to say 1,000 cameras district-wide. We've currently purchased maybe over the course of the time period here, maybe 100 cameras, 115. And those are continually getting put in as cameras fail and NVRs fail. The only additional piece of equipment that wasn't added on to that first additional RFP was the battery backups. That's when we discovered that, you know, with power surges and stuff like that, and/or power outages, the battery backups would continue to help support the camera systems and protect them from surging.
Can I help you out here a little bit, Scott? So if the first sentence said, the Adams 14 Maintenance Department would like to purchase the components and security camera systems to assure a secure, safe learning environment, would that take away the install?
No. I want this Board of Education approved in the capital reserve 16, 17, X number of cameras.
Correct.
X number of cameras. Now, we didn't approve a FRP, or I don't remember one for components to install security cameras. So they would have had to come in front of the Board of Education and bring us another one of these for the prior cameras that's supposed to have been installed already. So I'm confused is if we approved the cameras in the capital reserves and they already, you say, is up throughout the district,
That's correct.
and now you're saying there's 50 more cameras, where?
They'll continue to be each year. Each year it'll be a progressive year until we can get them all changed out and up to a newer system, because they're currently failing even as we speak. I'll have anywhere from 3 to 5 cameras fail, and then we'll take and go and put those up, and then in the same system. And I'll give you an example. Rose Hill. If there's 32 cameras there, I lose 1 or 2 cameras, and we go and replace those, and then I go to Allsup. Those camera systems are the same age. I'll lose 2 or 3 there. We'll go over and put those up. NVRs burn up. We're putting those up until we get the total camera system back up to a useful life. They're all at their end of life situation.
Right, I understand, and
Okay.
I thank your team for doing that, but I'm not.
So are you talking about the purchase, August 9th of 2016 that was approved by the board?
That was the cameras that was approved by the board, right?
That's correct.
And that was August 16.
August 9th.
August 9th, and that came out the capital reserves. 16. And Monica, how many cameras was that, please?
It doesn't specify, it just says,
Does that say the Hanson project? Because there was a Hanson project that was separate of anything else. We had two projects. One was Hanson. Hanson didn't have any cameras. I think they had 2 cameras. We'd done that, and then shortly after that, we did another RFP to do a camera and NVR purchase.
Because, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Weber, you provided the Board of Education the contract and everything. It was in our Friday updates. And I questioned those cameras, and if I'm not mistaken, on the record, you said those cameras that we purchased were still in the warehouse.
At that time, that could have been true. They probably just gotten shipped.
And that was a year ago, this past year. But if that's the case, the Board of Education, which is us, we did not receive a RFP for you to do the components needed to install the security cameras. We didn't approve that on those first cameras 2 years ago.
Our staff is installing them, so.
Our staff's installing them.
themselves.
Okay.
So we don't need an RFP for that. I think the language is messed up on here, so it shouldn't say install though. We're just gonna buy the equipment, and then our staff is gonna install them. That's what the RFP is for. It's just to buy equipment, and then once we get it in delivered, our staff, our maintenance staff, is gonna install those ourselves.
And then here go my question again. If you're gonna install cameras for the district, are those the cameras from 16 that you're installing? Because we haven't approved no other cameras. That's what I'm saying.
That's correct. That's why we're here today, to ask for the additional cameras on this RFP. Is we're asking, this 30,000 is requesting an additional 50 50 cameras, a number of NVRs, and some battery backups. So
That's not in here. That's not, there's no 50 cameras that I see in here. Does any other person see 50 cameras to purchase 50 cameras? No, I don't see.
Well, I think they were using, they shouldn't have used the word, it does sound, to purchase the components, and they should have said cameras.
It's not.
Yeah, it should specify.
So I can give an itemized list of what this RFP
think that's the
is, if that's what the question or the clarification is. I can provide the RFP that this 30,000 is going to purchase. That'll be cameras, NVRs, and the quantities of each of those components.
He keeps saying cameras.
Well, I think what he's saying is, from the money we approved, they only spent so much of it, so they want to use the remaining to finish purchasing more cameras, is what they're saying, but it doesn't say.
How many cameras?
Huh?
How many cameras?
Well, that's what we're saying now. He needs to reword that,
And there's 50,
so it's explains it to us better.
and the 50 cameras should be more than the 30,000 you're asking for. 'Cause you're asking for additional, you're asking for 50 cameras, right?
I believe that's what the number was. I would have to go back and look at the RFP.
And that's not in here. That's not in this. I'm asking the superintendent recommendation that I'm looking at. There's no mention of 50 cameras. So if you submitted this RFP, you had to let them know how many cameras was going in that what that contract was. Because why would you submit an RFP if you're not buying nothing?
You can you could do an RFP on a component cost. So if I wanted to know, if I get this, and then they'll say, hey, if you buy X amount, you'll get a break. So if you buy 15 of them, you'll get a break on this, and your price will go to that. But I can definitely provide the backup to the RFP that is quantifying the 30,000 that's on the SUPREC.
Superintendent, I would like to, so we can move on, I would like to know where those 50 cameras was installed at. I would like to know where those 50 cameras that the Board of Education approved in August of 16 that came out the general fund, I would like to know where each one of those cameras was installed at. I would like to see the RFBP that they had to use to put ask for components for those. I would like all the information provided to the Board of Education so we can move on those security cameras, the first 50 security cameras. As a matter of fact, how many security cameras are they asking for in this current budget out the capital reserve? Y'all asking for cameras out of the capital reserves, correct?
That's correct.
And how many is that? It's off the top of your head, if you don't mind.
That would be roughly 50 cameras. That's what this RFP is right here.
So so now we know the RFBP you asking for in front of the Board of Education is for 50 cameras we haven't purchased or approved on the budget.
That's correct.
There go your 50 cameras.
So what do you want to do with this one, Harvest?
I want to pull it, please.
Okay,
Because
so-
I'm trying to figure out how in the capital reserve, if we haven't even approved a budget, that you submitted a RFBP for cameras we haven't even purchased, we haven't even approved the budget, and I don't understand that. How does that work?
It cannot be.
How does that work?
So the money that he's asking for is rolled over from 16-17. When we talked last a couple of weeks ago about the cap reserve funds, that was for next school year, 18-19, which you haven't approved yet. So the money that he's asking tonight for the RFP to go out for 50 cameras was money that was not utilized, set aside, that you did approve in 16-17, but out of $160,000 that you approved, we maybe only spent 130 or 100,000 for those cameras. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So he wants that money was rolled over into the reserve, which was set aside for cameras but was never used. So this year, that money was still available, and he's asking for approval to go out to RFP for those remainder cameras.
So part of that confusion is when we bought those cameras, and that budget was parked, and it wasn't in my view, the cap reserve dollars for this fiscal year. So Dan reached out to me and said, hey, we got 30,000, can we get some additional cameras, NVRs, and battery backups to continue to take care of our failing system? So that's what this RFP is for. Now, the RFP goes out to the contractors. We get a number so we can come back. Now, there's an intent to award. It has not been awarded. There's not been any purchases until the board approves it. So when the board approves it, then we can release the intent to award and award this RFP to purchase the additional 50 cameras and the other components that are itemized for this RFP.
So, 30,000 from 16, 17 went back to the reserves.
It always does. It's a rollover.
It's a rollover.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go back into the reserves. It goes into the capital reserves. Everything rolls over to the capital reserve. So then they have to do a 16, 17 budget, right? So they ask for additional money for the capital reserve. So if they don't spend nothing in that, right, it rolls back into the capital reserves, and then they ask for some more money. So how can you go back 2 years and ask for $30,000? I'm done. Superintendent, this is up to you. I'm done, because I don't see how you can go back and sit here in front of the board and say something from the capital reserve, 16, 17, 30,000, rolled over to the capital reserve, but you didn't spend it. Then it start over again. You didn't spend it. Now you're trying to go back again.
I can't answer. Like I said, I cannot answer that. That was not in my view on our budget sheets.
So just to clarify too, 16-17 was last school year, and that just rolled over to this year, 17-18. So
correct.
I believe that money rolled over. It was still earmarked for security cameras, and that's what we're requesting now. So the 16-17, you did approve, from what I showed on record, $160,000 for security cameras. You may have only spent 100 to 130 of that, so that $30,000 was still earmarked for security cameras from last year to this year.
I would like Superintendent to get a copy of that budget to show that 30,000 rolled over into the security out of the capital reserves.
And so if you don't spend all of the money, if this 30,000 goes through, there's still some unused funds from 16, right?
That's correct.
So do they just continuously roll over?
That is not how it works. If it is not asked to be encumbered for a rollover, it goes into the district reserves.
Okay. I've got a big picture question. The district has what, some 500 cameras, plus or minus?
Yeah.
What's the expected life of a camera?
The expected
useful life?
Well, it depends what type of camera it is.
Well, the ones that we're getting.
A normal camera, in the weathered outside cameras, they'll go anywhere from 7 to 10 years.
Okay,
That's a normal life now.
So we need like 50 cameras every year?
Roughly, yes.
Oh, roughly.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're in dire needs for additional cameras out at the high school, because that is a system that is not supported because it's licensed for seating viewing positions. And so the district had at some time decided not to continue to purchase the number of seats that was there. But that system is outdated, and anytime that we try to work on it, we have to call in a contractor that's preparatory to that system, which hinders our security and high school staff to do viewing. And for the record, we only have one closed-circuit TV technician, and he's also the locksmith and intrusion technician. So it does take some time to get out and get all the needs taken care of by, a single individual.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a camera a week,
Yes.
year-round,
Well, that's
going bad.
just part of it. The other part of it is we have to go out and pull recordings and so forth for our security department or police officers every time there's an incident. These individuals go out there and take that footage.
So we'll pull that off, Monica. Scott, you'll work on the wording?
Yes, I'll clarify that, and I'll provide a itemized sheet that was part of this RFP for the amount shown.
Okay.
So pull it completely
Yes.
for the May meeting?
Pardon me?
Place it back on in May?
Well, if he gets it ready.
I could provide that easy enough for Tuesday night's meeting and have it to you, if that's soon enough, for your tomorrow's Friday update, if I can get it to her first thing in the morning.
I like that information I requested also prior to that.
Absolutely, I could pull all the RFPs and the purchases for the previous systems.
And I like for the superintendent, the budget for last year for that 30,000 to see if it rolled over and how did it roll over. I'd like to see that.
So I guess we'll leave it off, Scott, until we get that information, okay?
Okay.
You good, Harvest?
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to 3.10. Superintendent's recommendation, approval of Superintendent's Advisory Council on English Language Development. Now, the superintendent's asking for an advisory council for English language development. Per board policy, the way we interpret it is we're requesting, we're supposed to do the seeding and all that type of stuff. That goes along with that. But the superintendent is asking Tanya to assist in that stuff. I think they can explain to you what exactly they need.
And I don't know if, Tanya, you want me to start and you can help me out, but basically it's everything that's going on with English language development and some of the board meetings we've had, and we wanted to have input from our parents, our teachers, and our staff members, other staff members. So really, we want them to create this superintendent advisory committee. They'll look at the different models, but we do want to have representation from all schools, and I just want to let the board know that the people that we have here do not represent all schools. So the only thing I asked Tanya to do is please look into having representatives from, I think I said Rose Hill, Central, Allsup, DuPont, and Amsterdam Middle School.
Right.
So this list would not be totally correct. She's going to try to add more individuals so we can have representation from all schools. And then, again, those people would help us with recommending the different types of programs that exist, and then we can move forward with the ELD. And
Right. I think in the idea is that that we create a collaborative ELD plan that has long-term, 5 years, a 5-year plan, and I think it's really important that, and the superintendent believes it's important that our community is involved in that, well, teachers, parents, and principals.
For the individuals identified as educators, are those classroom teachers?
I believe
or-
most of them are classroom teachers, yes,
Or coaches?
or coaches.
Or coaches, so, okay. And then you're going to try to say there's 11, 6 of the 11 are from Hanson. So you're going to try to expand the base or replace some of the people from
Well,
Hanson with
all of these-
representatives from
All of
other
these people
schools?
applied, and so I think that it's really important that whoever's interested gets a seat at the table and a voice. And so I think it's to expand and not replace.
Okay. What, I'd like to ask Mr. Thomas what you had in mind when, there's some discussion about committees being initiated by the board, and then we kind of got into the weeds a little bit about a subcommittee versus an advisory committee and so forth. And we talked a little bit about this, I think, at the last study session, but we didn't come to any conclusions. Does the board have an interest in specifying, kind of establishing or creating this advisory council, or is it okay for the superintendent to do this kind of on his own?
Are you asking me
I'm-
as a board member?
I'm asking, I guess, Mr. Thomas is the one that initially brought this up, which I thought was a good point, and I think the board needs to grapple with this question, so I was actually addressing it to Mr. Thomas, but I also want to get input from the rest of the board, because there is a policy that Mr. Thomas did mention that, I don't remember whether the wording was subcommittees or what the specific nomenclature was, but that the board should establish any working committees or whatever you want to call it. And and then I think we wanted to make an exception. This is, again, just our general conversation that we had, but the best I remember is that we said, well, if we're talking about a technical situation, and I think this had to do with the TV channel or something like that, if a staff person felt that they needed some outside expertise to help them work through some of the technical issues, that having an advisory group to help a staff person with a technical problem, that's really very different, and it is in my mind as well, from setting up something that's going to lead into policy. Again, one of my main issues is delineating board policy from what the superintendent does independently of the board. And as I look at this, I would say certainly English language development should be a board policy. And so if there's going to be a council, a subcommittee, advisory group, whatever it is, under that title, that the board should be the one that specifies. I'm pleased with the initial cut that you've made on the membership, but I believe that the board is the one that should say, we want a policy on literacy or English language development or whatever it is. We specify the broad categories for membership. So many parents, so many teachers, blah, blah, blah. We give a charge as to what we want them to do. We can have input from the superintendent into the board policy, and then the board puts together a time frame with a set agenda and so forth. And so, in this case, I would advocate that this is really a board
And
policy.
traditionally, and just from my experience, which could have no bearing, so in the past and traditionally, the superintendent has created a council on ELD to create the ELD plan. The ELD plan is then approved by the Board of Education, and so, in my experience, it's a superintendent's advisory council that puts together or makes recommendations about the ELD plan. And so I'm feeling, and personally, I'm feeling quite a bit of sense of urgency around putting something together and making sure that our community's voices are heard around ELD. But of course, this is your show, and you get to decide how things are put together. But from my experience in this position before, when we created an ELD plan in this district previously, the superintendent who you've charged to put together quality education for children pulls together a group of people and says, with the help of his staff to kind of lead that charge on your behalf. We all work on your behalf, of course. So, but it's completely up to you.
Good. And Board President, I know that the policy may be vague because we see it from one standpoint, like what Tanya said, that, the superintendent would create this committee. Could we request from legal to look into the policy and try to interpret it, what the meaning for us?
Sure. I was going to ask Jonathan to help us interpret that policy, Jonathan.
Sure.
Because it's a little bit convoluted. It's a little bit.
Well, a few things that stand out. We're talking about policy BDF, advisory committees. It states at the top that the board has legal responsibility for decision-making in all matters of policy and operation. So whenever you have a committee that is advising the school district on policy, that committee functions as a delegated arm of the Board of Education. So it is providing advice on what is your ultimate authority as policy. ELD certainly would fall within that. It's a very big umbrella. Just about everything that the district does would fall under that. But this policy really focuses on citizen participation. So the difference would be if the superintendent wanted to convene a staff committee made up entirely of district employees, that would not fall under this, what seems to be contemplated by this policy. But what's being proposed, you have citizen participation, you have parents on there, and so that would seem to be what was intended by the policy. The board has said, if you're going to have advice from the public with staff, then it needs to be on a district-approved advisory committee. That's what it says, and this recommendation from the superintendent appears to comply with the policy. In fact, it goes above and beyond. It seeks approval for all of the appointments, whereas your policy just says that you want to have approved citizen appointments, for example. So this recommendation is asking approval for everybody that would be on the committee, including employees. And it just as the way it's phrased, it appears to be compliant with the policy. Superintendent has said, I'd like to form this committee. Would you like to approve it? I don't know if that answers your question.
Does that answer your question, Harvest, about the advisory committees?
I'm good. I understood it. So it's supposed to come through us, but so.
Well, it is coming through us. That's why he's bringing it to us.
Right, but so, but we didn't, as a board, we did not. I don't know how did y'all send out the like questionnaires who want to be on the committee? How
I'll have to defer to the Dr. Brago because I was not here at that time.
What was the question?
How we solicited it.
I believe we asked for volunteers, and then the people that volunteered, I think these were all the ones that did reply. So all the ones that replied were put on there. The only thing that I said when I talked to Tanya is that, Tanya, we don't have representation from all schools, so I said, please add a few more people so that when we do this work, I don't want people saying my school was left out. So I just wanted a few others added so that we would have representation from all of our schools.
So my question would be, did it go out to the community? Did it go out on Channel 8? Did all the schools see it? Because if that's the case, the Board of Education would have got the whole list of everybody, and we would have picked who we want on the committee and not the superintendent based on the policy. And then we would have had set the dates, the times, and this and that to go forward based on the policy. So how did we go to put it out to all the schools? Did we put it out to everybody? did you send a phone call out that because it's saying the superintendent and not the Board of Education is requiring this type of committee?
And I think that's where the confusion was at, that I was asking the attorney is, I guess, does the board determine who's going to be on the committee, or do we do it? Because we did our work, and then we're asking for them to approve this committee, but now I'm hearing that.
The policy as written would allow it to work either way. That is, the committee could be initiated entirely by the board, or the committee could be initiated by the superintendent. So, but if it is the latter, that is, in this instance, it's been initiated by the superintendent, it's still a recommendation, so it would be subject to the board's approval. If the board wants a greater degree of involvement in the process, then the solution would be to either ask that the recommendation be pulled and brought back, or just deny it. But, it just depends on what level of oversight that you want to have. That isn't specified directly in the policy. I would say the policy leaves that open. So you can exercise that if you want. It is within your power and authority, of course. Or you can just say, we're happy with the superintendent's recommendation. It really depends on how you feel about it.
Okay, so trying to pull these disparate parts together, and realizing there's some flex here, what I would like to ask for, and you've already mentioned it, part of it, is to have broader representation from schools and the parents of children in those schools. Whether you cut back on Hanson or whether you just expand the total membership is less important to me than to have broader representation. And the second thing I would like to see is a written statement as to the charge that you will have for this advisory committee. And the third thing, I'd like to see a timeline regarding status reports and final findings. So that would be really helpful.
Okay.
So we really understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, that's fair.
Honey, I just wanted to say, I think it's great the way you have it put together, but my only concern was I wanted to see more activity from all the schools.
Okay.
In there, and
I agree.
Parents, of course, but I just wanted to make sure, because I noticed there was several, and I'm not coming down on you or anybody, because I know this was put out to people.
And just to be clear, every application that was submitted and turned in is the list of every single person that made it onto the committee. No one was excluded.
And I'm fine with that. I just wanted to see some from the other schools, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I guess in the wording, can we just make sure it says, or did we put that in there?
And that's what I had said to the board, that this was
add
the...
more. We can add, it's approval of this, but we can add more to it.
Okay.
That's correct. That's what we wanted to make sure that you understood that this was not the final list. I had asked her to expand it, to have representation from all the schools.
And then I noticed that Mr. Romero is the only principal listed there.
That's correct.
Is he the unspoken chair of that committee, or is that self-determined by the membership itself, or
So
do
I
you
think-
have somebody who will lead that committee?
Yeah, so I think the committee will be led through the ELD department, and then he will be a participant, an equal participant.
It will be led by the ELD?
Well, it'll be facilitated through the department, and so when we go through, we can have them select chairs at our first meeting.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
And this may help clarify. The policy states, consistent with what was just stated, that a staff member or members, so employees of the district, will be assigned to the committee to help it develop an appropriate constitution, bylaws, carry out its function, and coordinate its work. So you essentially have a what they call an ex officio member of the district's employees administration to work with the committee.
So do you have enough information to cast a vote on Tuesday on this, either up or down? Or do we need more clarification prior to voting up or down?
Well, I think we need to review what the revised proposal
Okay.
that you'll bringing to us.
Yep.
So we'll need, or unless we're going to try to get it
Tomorrow.
to us before Tuesday.
Okay, I will try to do that.
That suffice everybody?
So the plan is for the board to approve the current list of participation, and then once the additional schools submit their names of participants, we'll come back for another approval for those additional
Individuals.
committee participants.
Okay.
Okay, so Jonathan, do we need an addendum to the policy to say we're going to approve it this way or not if we decide to do it? Or are we okay just voting up or down?
I think you voted up or down. The recommendation as phrased appears to comply with the policy. As long as it meets your criteria for whether you like it or not. I have a couple ideas. We could make a couple of nip and tuck word changes on the as written, like the initial members of the committee are, things like that might clarify some of the issues.
Can you work with
Absolutely.
Tanya to get that done? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I have to leave the study session. I was assigned to go to the biz bash by this Board of Education, so I do need to be there by 6:30, so I'm going to turn the chair over to Ms. Quintana. I know she'll do a sufficiently perfect job, probably way better than I could ever thought of doing, but
And Board President, just so you know, let
Liking that.
them know that I'm going with you too. We're both going.
Superintendent's going to go also, so. So if you have any questions for the superintendent, write them down, or do we have somebody here that can answer them?
I think most of them, we have a person that can help if you have any concerns. Their name should be on the,
I have them here.
I have them here.
Okay.
on the
perfect.
Super Act.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to discuss approval to increase funds for approved district vendor Semple, Farrington, and Everall PC. Any discussion about this agenda?
So that's our attorney.
Yes, it is our attorney. I mean, he's part of it, but, so that's what this is about.
And I believe that this one was assigned to us because
Right.
we're getting close to the end of the school year, and we only budgeted X amount of money for that, so I think that
You need to stay.
I'm leaving. I think that we're just leaving, we're asking for
For
an additional,
$45,000,
to finish out the year.
43? Yes. So is there any discussion?
Thank you.
Well, we've used 45,000 for, what, the last 3 or 4 months?
All year, up
So-
to date.
Oh,
So we
Okay, so-
budgeted 88,000, and we've used 45, right, Monica?
Close to, not quite there, but we're
Okay.
close to.
So,
45,000 is what was originally approved at the beginning of the school year.
and I think we're estimating that this would cover us till school's out,
Yes.
so, correct? Any concerns,
what's the, because I wasn't on the board at the beginning of the school year, and I'm trying to remember, I thought that the Semple, Farrington, and Everall we contracted with them after I was on the board.
No,
But you're saying it preceded
we've had them.
my participation?
Yes.
We didn't have
So,
general counsel at the board meetings, but we always used them
Yeah.
from throughout.
This approval is only to comply with the financial,
Until the end of
restrictions
school.
that the board, has in place for us to come to the board every time we go over the approved amount. And so we're almost hitting that approved amount that the board approved at the beginning of the school year. And because we went over 15,000,
We have to approve it.
yeah, the board has to extend that threshold, because we were going to hit that pre-approved amount.
Gotcha.
Madam Chair?
Okay, thanks.
May I add? So I certainly wouldn't advocate one way or the other for this. That wouldn't be appropriate. And I didn't know this was on your agenda. I didn't know anything about it. But my guess is it has to do with the decision to have me here,
Right.
which was not, my understanding is not how you budgeted your year.
Right.
So that was a decision you made during the middle of the year, and that has a financial impact.
And just to add a little bit of history, we did have general counsel here before, plus a secretary or a what do you call it? Paralegal. And that ran us, well over about 200,000, close to. And that person would also send out legal matters to other attorneys. So it was actually costing us more at that time. And I think Sample, Farrington, and Everall have done everything we've asked them to do for us. And I don't know, I just think we need to, we approved this, remember?
Yes.
We needed one here, and Jonathan stepped in, and I think he's done an exceptional job. So we're actually saving more money than what we were spending before. And he's just helping us legally, doing a great job. So that's all I have to say. So I don't know if anybody else has anything. You okay, Dave?
Yeah.
Harvest?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. Approval, out-of-state travel to Pomona, California to attend symptomatic ELD leadership seminar on June 4th through the 8th, 2018. Any discussion?
When it says to approve, the approval to send 3 staff, but then it lists 2 people, is there a missing comma or is there a missing person?
Our original intent was to send 3, but only 2 could commit at this time, and so the error is on me.
So it's just the 2?
Just 2. Mm-hmm.
So does the 6,350 change?
No, that's correct.
Can you change this before Tuesday?
No, the change the 2. Yep, I can definitely do that.
Okay. Okay with it?
Thank you.
Approval of in-state overnight travel to Colorado Springs, Colorado by Adult Learning Center on April 27th, 2018, and this is for Jesse Hawthorne, Mr. Chacon. Anybody have any concerns?
Just when we talk about adult education, what are we talking about?
So that is the AFLA funded.
Stay right there, Ruben.
Adult Education Family Literacy Act funds.
Use that mic, because Cameron's gonna come in.
It's just him walking is.
It is the, can you hear me?
No.
It's not on, I don't think.
We can hear you.
But Cameron doesn't.
I can walk.
Okay.
It's my second date.
Physical therapy.
It's physical therapy. It's my second day of walking. It's the adult ed and family literacy component. So it's the adult ed grant that is awarded to the district through CDE, and it's focused on adults in the community and in the Adams County area itself.
We are generally talking about parents, or are we talking about people over 21 years of age, or what's when you talk about an adult? Is it just anybody in the community?
So it's usually 18 and up, and it's anyone in the community, whether it's parents, community members, staff members. It's like we actually do some services with our parents that are engaged with STOMP, and we help them with some of the work keys testing and those pieces. So it really is focused on community and the education, whether it's like adult GED or whether it's adult education. It's also citizenship as well.
So it's a bunch of, yeah. How many just in the whole, adult learning center? How, in a year's time, how many people sign up for something? I mean,
I don't have the grant and goals off the top of my head, but I want to say
thousands?
It's close to 1,000.
Okay.
And so we have classes that run in the morning here in the, so like for instance, I think you used to volunteer with the STOMP group last year.
Right, yeah,
Those
I'm
classrooms
familiar.
down there are also the adult ed classrooms.
Right.
And then we have classes and programming that runs at the high school. And then the grant itself, since it's a actually geographical area grant, we also provide services at Rose Hill, and that's family literacy. And then we have program that is actually extended out to surrounding districts as well, because it's try to pull people in.
It's a great program, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And this trip is paid for through that grant itself.
Okay? No questions? Okay. Thank you, Ruben. The next one is approval of replacement of the existing stadium sports field. And that is Scott. Mr. Weber.
Scott's fine. Is it okay if I approach the bench? I just want to share some of the photos that they're speculating for this field to look like on a finish, and to provide a sample.
Ooh.
So this is the color scheme that the athletic director has looked at. That's the second choice, but it's just the first choice and second choice. I apologize, I didn't bring copies for everybody.
This is the first choice?
That is the
This
first
one.
choice.
And what's the
What's
difference?
the
What's the
difference?
The
difference?
difference is the orange going down the
Oh.
sidelines prior to the coaches and team boxes. One's black,
That one has
one's
black.
orange, and one's, I think,
Okay.
And I think some people are probably more aware of this than I am. What's wrong with the field we have?
So currently, what's happening is this
Looks
play
the same.
is
What is
just
the
poured
difference?
down to where the rubber that goes inside here, this rubber that holds it in place. And so therefore, what happens is.
Scott, you'll have to get on the.
On the mic.
On the mic, so other people can hear you, yeah.
I'll let you pass that.
Yeah.
Part of the current condition of our field is that the blade of grass is getting so short that it doesn't hold the rubber infill, which is the protection of the impact when somebody's taking a fall or, being a physical sport on that field. That's part of the protection that protects the individual so that they're not hitting hard ground.
How old is the,
This field is, I think, just going past 9 years, and the average life of a field, just in the football sports, is usually between 8 and 10 years. Now, we play soccer, we have a lot of practices, we play football, and a lot of community use throughout the years. Now, more so than I know about, one of the reasons that we started looking into this field is we had some snow removal done, and we had to go back in and put some rubber mulch back in there because it got compacted with the snow when it got moved out. After reviewing the field, it looks like we have some seams, and then definitely if you go out there and look, you'll see that the rubber mulch or the rubber inlay is at the top of the blade of the grass rather than being down as the example I'm sharing with you currently. You know, I could say that it would last another year, it might last another 3 years, or the seam could tear this summer, and, you know, we would have to move our teams to practice elsewhere.
Does the proposed new stuff have a warranty or guarantee?
It does. The current warranty on these fields are 8 years, just because of the traffic. With the number of middle schools, IGAs that we have with the city, and then our high school sports being on that. I know a number of years we had some competition bands out on it practicing, so it gets used quite a bit. A lot of traffic. Now, if we want to extend that longer, you know, we would have to look at, you know, what limiting our games and only for our high school students, and, you know, that would be a decision that the board would have to make to try to extend the life of that turf.
Well, I mean, if they give you, they guarantee 8 years, that's so we could use it as much as we want, and
yeah, that 8-year warranty covers everything. You know, color fade if it gets tore, if any of those incidences. Now, there's obviously probably some warranty information there that, you know, by the act of Mother Nature would be on us, but other than that, normal wear and tear from our athletics would be warranted.
Is it used for soccer?
Yes.
Is there a women's soccer team?
I believe so. I would imagine that there is. There's.
Do they have a lacrosse team? I mean, not a lacrosse team. Well, lacrosse.
There was an outside. There is a third-party lacrosse team, but I don't know if that's still existing in the district. But I do know that the city rec has a number of different events with their, what do I want to say, their sports programs that would utilize that field on top of our current high school athletics that are out there.
And looking at this earlier today, I thought the figure was higher than 380,000. Is that correct? The 380.
That is correct. I believe what you've seen was the budget that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago that was budgeted at 4. One of the other bids that came in on this field was over 400. It was 432 and some change. So we're securing this through our U.S. Communities program, that turf.
So this would be done, when would they switch it out?
Well, if we get approval Tuesday night, they have to have 30 days to get the fabric. So that would put us into the end of May by the time the fabric's made. And I'm hoping to have.
So they do it over the summer?
This summer, that's correct. Prior to football camps or any other camps going on in that field.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, everybody?
What do you plan on doing with the old stuff? Because it's not that bad, so.
The company would be responsible for taking it off-site and disposing it.
Well, my thing
we
is
usually
that-
try to incorporate in that language that it's recycled and put back to, a lot of times these companies will take that back to their factory and recycle it and make the next carpet.
And the reason I asked that question was because why don't we use some of that turf that's left over on that baseball field? I don't know if you've been to the baseball field, you've been to other ball fields, but a lot of schools are now using turf in their bullpens where they don't have to deal with the dirt and the weeds. They're using turf a lot. And I think before we get rid of all our turf that we should take a look and see where we could use it on other facilities before we give it all up.
And
If we're paying $300,000, I don't know what you're paying a square foot, but we can save a little money there to upgrade in our fields and facilities in this district, which
Yeah,
I say
if you
for
would
as
like,
they are, they look terrible compared to others.
yeah, if you'd like to use that for such as you're saying inside the bullpen to knock down some of the dirt that obviously coming up from the pitching, and we could definitely take a look at doing that and making sure how we secure it down. But it won't have the drainage or any of the other components that go under that field, and that's, you know, where it gets costly, where we have to dig that out and put the support and drainage under it. Now, not saying it can't be done, and done, you know, fairly reasonable for cost, but that would be an additional cost to move that and place it somewhere else. Because you could just set it on top of the soil, but, you know, over time with the weather and everything, it would eventually sink down and get full of mud, and some of those scenarios would start taking place with that fabric.
The reason I say this is because I think we got to upgrade our facilities. I mean, last night we had a ball game in Brighton. You ought to see theirs.
They
Turf. And I think you, as being charged, to send your grounds people to look and see what they're doing to other facilities in their school district. And why should we be secondhand?
Yeah, and believe me, Felix has asked if we could get a turf in our varsity field, and so I believe that, you know, that'll be coming up just because of the upkeep. I know we were here a year ago, and just that varsity field alone, just with the infill mix and the overseeding, was dang near, I want to say close to $70,000. So you add that plus the water, the mow, and the upkeep versus a turf like this where, you know, it's minimized to the upkeep of that, it starts making sense.
Yeah, just send your people to go look at other schools and their ball fields and see what they're doing.
Absolutely. And
ours is not.
And that
no reason. Our field's only 10 years old, and I'll be honest with you, when I was coaching at Skyview, my kids didn't want to come and play at Adams City because of the way your facilities were, and we're still having those problems. So just, it's time that we start getting our facilities where they should be. And if we can use this turf to do what the other schools are doing, let's use it instead of just throwing it away.
Absolutely.
So could you
And
check into that?
And this is, you know, as I believe so. And this is, you know, as we had mentioned in our budget meeting, Sean and I and Mr. Thompson are looking at doing a long-term facility range plan to where we can start budgeting for these things. And, you know, when you got roofs, asphalts, turf fields, all those coming at once, we need to go out for a bond, mill levy override to help support the current facilities that we have.
So, piggybacking on Mr. Roller's comment, how long will it take for y'all to find out if they can move some of this turf over to the baseball field?
To actually put it in the baseball field?
That's what you asked.
Well, I wouldn't move something that we're taking out because of our concern of the compaction of it on the football field. I'd be a little leery of moving it over and saying that it would be certified to play chassis sports in the baseball field. And it would have all the lines and everything in it from the football and the soccer and the lacrosse, so it wouldn't even look like it belonged to the football or the baseball field. We could use it in the bullpens. I don't think there's any problem with that. Yeah.
Mr. Roller was saying the bullpen.
Yeah, no, we have the right to retain any of our, what we deem as district surplus from the vendor. They're not getting any credited value to take it off of our hands.
Everybody okay? Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'll look and see what it'd take to get that mat put down, like in the batting cages or something of that nature, to try to cut down on some of that dust. Okay.
Thank you. Moving on, the next one is approval of budget increase for a partial roof replacement at Kemp Elementary. Any questions? None?
The best grants is to build which, what are the schools that we're replacing under the best grant?
Alsop,
Alsop and,
City Middle School.
because I think, Mr. Thomas, you had said something a couple meetings back, that if we put too much money, into an existing building, that may disqualify that site for replacement over a certain period of time. But I guess that doesn't apply to this situation.
It does apply, but camp is so far down the line that it'd be insignificant at this point.
And I believe part of that was is if you have a best grant roof put on, then it would disqualify us from a best grant replacement. And it doesn't disqualify us. We would have to pay the state back for that difference of wherever they value that roofing system that they just paid to give us.
Right.
Thank you. And the next one is yours again. Approval of budget increase for partial roof replacement at DuPont Elementary. Any questions?
Not just clarifying that these are increases from the original RFP that you guys approved back in December after the hard bids went out with the contractors. These are the inflated numbers from the actual bid. The vendor, or I should say our consultant, gave us their construction costs, and when they actually went out to bid, the state of Colorado across the whole state, roofing costs have went up substantially, and so that's why I'm back here asking for these increases to address those shortages on their projected costs.
Okay. No questions? Let's see if I lost my page. Approval of Kearney Middle School and Lester Arnold High School projects. Scott. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
In the first paragraph after Lester Arnold, it says a complaint with the state for $4,600. I haven't seen that complaint. Did you see the complaint? Anybody see it?
That was a violation to the daycare center at Lester Arnold of I believe it's a 4-foot wall, and it needs to be extended to an 8-foot wall to be compliant with the state.
Right, but I didn't see it. I haven't seen it. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
When did this come? When was the complaint?
It was in, I want to say in December when they were doing our licensing for our daycares and after-school programs. It was founded by that firm that said that we had to get that up to an 8-foot. And I believe it's Human Services that does our daycare licensing, but it was a violation. Mr. Sandos has that violation. He's the one that brought it to my attention, and that's how this was brought forth to you today.
I'd like the Board of Education to get a copy of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't either. I'll ask Mr. Sandos to send that to me.
And Ms. Quintana, can we put a hold on that?
A hold?
Until we get the complaint, because he's saying it's a complaint through the.
No, compliant, sir.
It's
a
a
compliant,
It's a
to be
non-compliant.
compliant.
Right, through the state, but I'm saying the Board of Education, if it's a non-compliance and the Board of Education haven't got a copy of it, how do we know what it is, or we didn't even ask, it wasn't brought to our attention?
Mine doesn't say,
Sure.
But
So, just from my life with when we had more with before and after school program,
You have to follow.
what it is Human Services comes in and actually does inspections of all daycare centers. So as they're doing inspections as part of that licensing piece, they look at, does the carpet not meet standard? Is there pointy edge that needs to be rounded. It's all that piece in terms of the child safety. So if you're running a home daycare center or you're doing it at a school, so what it is, as part of that inspection that they do of the facility, they come through and they say, this wall is too short, it needs to be a different height. So it's more of the compliance with the child care requirements. And that tends to, I don't know who's in charge of like child care components in the district now, but in the past it was like Patty Gleason.
Yes.
So she would handle those issues in terms of just being in compliance with the licensure that they need to have that new baby center over at the Lester Arnold.
Mine say compliant. Am I saying that word wrong?
It's compliant.
Compliant.
right.
So
Compliant,
they,
whether they're complying.
So with the state for $4,600. So again, I haven't seen it.
okay, so you
I
want
haven't seen it.
what you're asking
just
for is
wanna
the
see it.
inspection from
we want-
Human Services regarding the child care center.
We want to see the inspection.
I'm sure Mr. Santos will have
Matter of
that.
fact, I'd like to see the last 3 years because the wall has been the same for the last, since it's been there.
And I'm just speaking from
Just
my experience. I don't know
depends,
what.
And just from when I worked there, it just depends on how they randomly go in to a site
Mm-hmm.
to inspect it. So it could happen at any time.
Right, but
So
And it might be a change in compliance pieces from
the law could
from
be.
law or anything else. So when they have the inspector who goes through to all child care centers, it's just one of the things that came up. And so I'm sure Mr. Santos would have that inspection.
I like the Board of Education to have the last 3 years of those inspections of the daycare.
I believe, I believe this year was another company that we had contracted with for our before and after school programs. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or was it just due this year?
This is all the baby center at Lester Arnold.
Okay. The reason I say that is because recently we've had, again, state mandated request without a funding source, and so therefore our before and after school programs of any preschoolers or under the age of 5, we've had to run radon testing, lead water testing, and it's all to be compliant with our before and after school or daycare licensing program. The same with our playground equipment. So this is just one thing of many that, we've been making corrections on. The reason that we're here before you is because it's a consolidated quantified budget over 15,000, 4,600 of it going to Lester Arnold's wall. That was not the only thing that was out of compliance with that daycare center. It was also to put up a full-size door.
I'm not disputing the money. What I'm questioning is the board did not see that. The compliant. We didn't see it, so
Yeah,
as a board, we didn't see why did they what happened. So in my case, as a board member, I like to know. Then is there any other cases that we wasn't complying in? So if they seen that, what else did we didn't see that the board don't know? And that's where the communication comes from. This is not about what you trying to bring to us. I understand that, but I'm asking Ms. Borges to provide the board with the copy of the compliance where we
Just
did
Right.
not see it. So we
Yeah.
can see.
And we could definitely provide those compliance letters from whether it's Tri-County Health or Human Services or even the state. When we get those, we depending on the severity of it,
There's a time frame,
we
a
have
time
to
frame to do
address it or they get their license or they get put on notice. So those are the things that we address. But absolutely, if you would like those things to go, I can tell the principals to please pass those through Monica to share with your staff.
Ms. Borges, will you please take care of that? Because she's stepping in for the superintendent, so I would ask the superintendent to do the same thing, and that's why I'm asking Ms. Borges. I'm not questioning the wall, the modular, none of that. I'm asking, I like to see what we didn't see that has Lester Arnold having to build the wall.
Okay.
did they put a deadline, the?
They did,
Once it's
and when,
They'll take the license.
right, and so part of this process, because of the severity of what has to be constructed there, we have to then involve a architect to design the space to get even a number for somebody to bid on that. So we take that violation, we give it to the architect. What is it going to take for us to get in compliance with this current space? And then it was put out to bid. Now, with the child care fine, or that individual, that inspector, finding that we have went through those steps to make a correction, they've extended the time for Paul to do that, but he had
You
just
know the
mentioned to me.
deadline?
There is a deadline, I just don't know what the deadline is,
I would
but
like to know that.
that did extend some time for us.
Help us get it
It-
moving.
Because if you're saying that they had to put architect, you already approved the construction company, so you already did the architect how to build the wall.
By default, we have to have that in place, and the state has to approve it. The state of Colorado permitting department has to approve that design for anything that gets constructed over a 6-foot wall inside a public school building. Has to be approved by the state. So therefore, they can't approve anything without a drawing. So we have to provide a drawing, and then once we get it approved, then we can go to a contractor and say, what will it take to fix this situation?
So Monica, can we get the update, hold this?
And on the second part of it, what's the Kearney modular change?
Ruben, I'm going to let you address I can address what the specifics are on the construction,
I just want to know
or do you want
generally.
just,
I don't,
he can
Has
give
to
you
be
the
done.
specifics of what the classroom space needs are. I can just give you the specifics of what the design's going to look like.
I just want to know what are we trying to accomplish with the 11 grand?
So that modular at Kearney is actually coming through my department, and I didn't realize this was the same conversation. It is actually in the modular, it's the old modular that used to be the community reach, like workroom.
Right.
So it's been sitting there empty for a couple of years. We've had one person maybe use it who's from community reach. This year, we actually repurposed it for middle school alternative program. And so the way it was designed, there's offices and then there's counters and there's offices that we don't need and a couple sinks we don't need. And so really to open up the space so that we can have 10 students in there comfortably in that alternative services program, it's more to open it up and to make sure that it's supported properly in that area. So it's really just reconfiguring the modular to actually use it to its full potential.
Okay, great.
And it's really focused all on students that are facing expulsion or have been expelled through the middle school program, just to try to reduce the expulsion numbers.
Yeah, right, thanks.
Okay,
Just, that modular that's on this Kearney School Ground, that's on a national park, correct?
That's on the other side of the property. That's on the south side. I recall.
National Park's on the south side?
Yes, where the picnic
Because if I
tables are.
remember right, in previous years, we wanted to remove that modular, and they said we couldn't because it was on a national park.
I believe the south side of it is all national park. The north side where the modulars are school district property.
That's on 67.
But you're right, there is a national park there, along with Central Elementary. There's a national park there as well that butts up against our district property.
everybody okay? We're gonna hold it until he gets that information to us. And
So
Dr.
we can move
Burgos-
forward if we get it by tomorrow?
We don't have to hold it.
Oh, we don't wanna hold it,
No, I
okay.
just want the information.
Okay, so we, Mr. Harvest just re-clarified that we're not gonna hold it. He just wants that complaint sent to us,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
Report, not complaint.
Right.
It's a violation, yeah, violation of the current space.
So the next one I think is out of Sally, Dr. Burgos. Approval to contract with ABS Enterprise. Any questions? None?
I don't have none.
Okay.
You're good.
Good, we're good. Okay, the next one is approval of Boys and Girls Club contract extension. And that is the $65,000 we've annually given to them every year
Correct.
since they've been in Commerce City. Any questions?
On the amount, is that something that we offer, or did they request that? Or, you know, how is that amount settled upon?
You know, that was, oh, go ahead.
I believe it's a per student fee, and it's an established per student fee.
And the number of students that we've been sending there has been the same every year for a number of years?
I believe that they include every student because at any given time, they may service one of our students in their after-school programming and before-school programming.
So any child in all our school districts can access that, boys and girls? The only problem I think we had was getting the students, because across the track, Alsep, Adams City Middle, DuPont, Monaco, they don't have access to the boys and girls. So that was one of the shortcomings, I think, and I'm talking about me personally, because it used to be funded, the 65 came through the program I was in, so I know firsthand about it, you know. When it was at Kearney, it was just, we had feeder schools that went into it, because they only took so many students. But now they have this beautiful building, and I always wanted, personally, I always wanted somehow sort of transportation from the other schools in, but that never happened. And I don't know why. So.
Okay.
I mean, I can look into, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say.
That's okay.
They have a bus there, so.
I know.
They might be doing transportation as part of their services, so we can look into that.
I think I brought that up last year.
Used to transport, but
Yeah.
now that they have their own location, their building, and the grants under them, I think that they might provide some means of transportation for students, because I know they do have a bus parked there all the time.
When they were at Kearney, they always had two.
Were they theirs or ours?
One of them was ours, and then I don't know, no, I mean, it was theirs. I'm sorry, I was speaking as if I was still there. But that has been one of my issues, is the children on the other side can't get over here. And I think I brought it up when the former superintendent was here. I wished all the kids had access to it, a way to get from their school to there. Because a lot of those kids, their parents work, and they have nowhere else to go, you know. Over there, they can go, they could do their homework, they can play games, they get snacks, you know, whereas if they go home alone, they don't have that. They don't have the help with homework and that, and over here they did. So that's been my only issue, is I wished all the students had access to it.
Maybe we should look into, see what it would cost for buses to transport students from the various schools, Adams City, Monaco, DuPont,
And then
also.
the parents pick them up over there anyway.
And the parents would pick them up over there, so it'd just be a matter. And I thought we had talked about that at one time.
I know I brought it up before, and it just never,
Because if CDL can do it,
yeah.
because I pass by there a lot of times, and CDL is dropping off students that they transport students there, and then they drop them off, and then the parents pick them up. So that's something maybe we can get, have the transportation give us a cost and see what it would cost for us to have
Yeah, I
for
believe
them
they
to
may
take a
already be
bus
doing
over
that,
there.
but I would have to verify.
Okay. Any
Thank you,
other?
Ruben, for helping. I appreciate that.
Any other? No? Okay. Next one is approval to purchase elementary K through 5 benchmark education consumable materials. Any questions?
Is that to finish out the 17-18 year?
No, that's for the incoming school year.
It's 18, 19.
We purchase them now. It's a tedious process. You put the purchase order in, you make sure they package them by school so that when the school year
Starts.
begins, the consumables are already there, they've already been unpackaged, and they've already been assigned to the classroom teachers. So the year starts off.
Can you just add that this will be for the 18-19 school year? Because the way I'm reading it,
Yes,
saying the doctrine of the budget, we know you're taking out the general fund budget of the curriculum, but
okay.
And, yeah, normally that's how they've always done it. They purchase them out of this school year for the next year.
As long as we receive them by June 30th, it's allowable.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's stated that way. Do you want to still add for use, to be consumed 2018-19 school year?
Yes, please.
Monica, I'll take a look. Thank
further?
you.
Everybody okay?
For the updates tomorrow, okay.
Next one is saying.
Okay, the next one says approval to purchase elementary K through 5 math in focus consumable materials. And I think that's probably.
It's the same way?
Same
Mhm.
thing.
Please.
Make sure I make that modification there as well. Thank you. Okay, I think that's,
I have a question, Ms. Burke.
yes.
Do the staff know that this is what you purchasing for them for next year? Do they know that this is what the district is providing for them?
Actually, the way it works is that we request from them the total consumables that they will need for the incoming school year at the building level. So yes, if they requested it, that means that they know they're going to be using it.
Okay, that looks like we're finished for the night.
No, don't you have discuss superintendents?
Oh, where is that?
That's 3.22.
I don't have that one on my paper. So we need to discuss the tools for the superintendent's evaluation. So this is for the board.
Yeah.
So we could discuss it, and we could be done if
Yeah.
they want to leave, they can.
If you want to leave, you can go ahead
Well,
and
I
leave.
got one question for Mr. Gianni. Nothing hard, so you don't have to get mad at me. You know, I've been going over to the high school, Mr. Thompson, and I've noticed that they've been checking off everything to do the asphalt that we said that we're gonna get done. When's the plans to get that done?
The asphalt,
On the parking lot?
me and Scott were just talking about that. It's kind of coordinating the asphalt with the football field. So it'll be done this summer. We just don't know exactly when because we got to coordinate it with that football field. So we don't want traffic to come in and out while we got these trucks that need to bring in this AstroTurf, putting in ruts into the concrete. But everything should be completed this summer.
Okay, and my question was because you and I had talked one time about,
It's coming to the May 8th meeting, I'm sorry.
about the lighting in that parking lot, how terrible it is.
Right.
And my question is, if we're going to maybe look at lighting, why can't we do the lighting at this time and see if we can afford it? Because what I see all the time is we'll go and lay the asphalt. Now we decide we're gonna do the lighting, and before we know it, there we are cutting up the black asphalt in different places to get the wires in there. And that's one of the things I hate because it seems like every time they cut that asphalt, that's the first to go. And so what my suggestion would be, if there's any way that we can check on the lights, what kind of lights we can get back there before they lay the asphalt, that way they can lay the wires. And because, and as I notice, Cherry Creek High School, Valor Christian, all these big schools have went to those LD lights themselves, and I go, if they can do it, why can't we? If we have, so that was the only thing I had for security purposes, because I know you mentioned to me, there was times you had to walk young ladies to their cars because they were scared to go in that. And our students shouldn't have to be scared
Very dark. Yeah.
to go in that parking lot.
We can look into that. I know Brett, Scott just showed me, Brett put up a new light, one light already.
Right. We've got one up as a test right now, as a retrofit, so they actually fit the existing poles and put out more light. So I'll find out exactly which pole that is, and I'll let you guys know where it's at so you can go by and see it. But we had purchased actually 2 or 3 of them and have put them up to test them to make sure that they're going to do what we want them to do before we purchase, 30 of them for the whole parking lot. So it is in the works.
Okay.
Thank you. And that's it?
Oh, I might as well bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to, maybe Mr. Thomas here suggest to me that if there's a way that we could meet and go over that baseball facility. I don't know what your plans are going to be as far as with the backstop leading the way it is after yesterday's wins, if we're going to allow our students to play on that field or if we're going to move into the swing field. Either way, there's a safety hazard on each field, and I want to go over some of those hazards.
Yeah, we can go look at that. We have some structural engineers coming to look at it to see, does that need to be taken down immediately? Nobody's on it right now. They shouldn't be on that until that gets cleared. But when you were speaking about the turf earlier, I was sitting over there taking notes, and I think if we're going to look at, kind of moving some things, now would be the time. If we're going to put anything additional onto those fields, would be the time while that backstop is being replaced or fixed. Now would be the time because looking forward, that screen that's up there is what created the pressure to push that fence over because it was like a sail. And knowing when I was speaking to you that's up there because it's the wrong facing field and it's there to stop the sun from going into the pitcher's eyes while there's a batter at play.
And so my thing is, if you're going to replace the backstop, great. But my thing is, we have maybe 8 or 9 games left. So we're going to have to play some of those games till if they get that backstop. I'm sure that it's not going to just take them a week to do it. Right. It's going to take a little longer. But if we are going to play our games on that swing field for the varsity games, we're going to have to do a little bit of maintenance on it to get it so it's dangerous because coming right off third base, you have a 6-inch lip of grass between the grass and the dirt, and all you need is for one kid to make a turn and break an ankle, and we're going to have problems.
Yeah, we can definitely.
We're also going to have to take a look at those bullpens on this swing field because the plate sticks up 4 inches above the ground. I mean, these are all hazard, and it kind of scared me after you told me about, what was that, Clarence Davis Act or whatever, where if somebody gets hurt because we're negligent of fixing that, it's said $900,000 lawsuit automatically, just about. And that's what I'm saying is, we all think about football. Well, you know what? If we're going to sponsor sports, let's do the right things in all facilities.
Yeah.
And so I would like to show you what I'm talking about.
If Monica wants to set up a time, I could walk the fields with you, Scott, and whoever else.
As long as I'm not golfing.
But to clear things up, that would not fall under the Claire Davis Act, just because it's not
I don't know.
Act of school violence. But it still falls under a negligent act if you know that there is something that can hurt somebody and you don't take action to correct it. Then we still are negligent. So.
And we want our kids safe.
Yeah.
Correct.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Mr. Rolla, just to clarify, a board meeting?
A what?
At the field? A board meeting?
He wants to walk it with me and Scott.
Scott
Just between you
and
three?
Mr. Thompson and Felix, whoever's running that show, whatever. Because
Okay.
there's some real negligence up there. I went to watch the kids practice, and they were practicing on the swing field. 5 kids got hit either in the throat or in the face because that field wasn't drugged right.
Right.
There's things we got to.
Well, Well, what about the others, fields? Are they okay?
Well,
Kearney
let's
and-
not worry about those because
Kearney and AC?
So we just worked with the city, and they just put, I think,
Cities do the rest of the
$400,000 into those fields.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I just have,
The high school, the last couple of years, we've had Bigfoot out there, and we did the softball field last spring, and the varsity field the year prior to that, because each one of those infill laser linings, and that's what I was explaining earlier. We had Big Turf Sporting come in and get those fields back to their current safe conditions, and so the swing field's next on the list, but again, you know, we're going around by highest priority. It's anybody's decision from there.
As soon as we know what this backstop is, that'll definitely dictate the next emergency priority, so we'll know here soon.
I just had a follow-up question, and this is really from 5 or 6 weeks ago. I think it was for, Eddie had come up and said he would look into the accounting, the finance question about $1 million being spent for 6 people in human resources, and he said he'd get back to me on it, and he hasn't, and I just wondered, I would like to have a follow-up,
Thank you,
and
Gianni.
preferably by Tuesday, if we can do that. It was from the budget, the adopted budget on page 88. It shows $172,000 being paid to each of 6 people in human resources. Maybe it's a typo, or maybe it really happens.
I haven't seen that. I can't imagine we're paying some.
I showed it to Eddie. Came up to the dais, and I showed it to him. He said he'd look into it, but he's left since he was here earlier. But it's just a follow-up that hasn't been. Thanks.
Okay, everybody could leave if you want. We're through with our study stuff. So right now, we're gonna do this other. We have a quorum. So, we are presented with sample 1, sample 2, and sample 3. And I think we discussed part of this at the last board meeting. But Bill didn't have a chance to go through them all. So now we're here to discuss it again. We're not going to vote on it. We're just going to discuss it and bring it over for the board meeting. Right.
And last time, a number of you had said you preferred number 2.
All
And
4 of us
when
did.
When I looked at it, and that's fine with me, but as I see it, it's the most involved by a lot. And numbers 1 and 3 essentially are subjective in nature, the evaluations, on a relative scale, and it's something that would be administered to board members, senior staff, and principals. Option number 2, which is what everybody's selected, has 46 metrics divided into 12 categories, plus 360-degree reviews for each of those areas that gets distributed to the superintendent and to the board and other people. So it's far more complex, but that's what the members have suggested is the thing to do. So, and I'm happy to go along with that, but then that means there's a lot of work that we have to do, because if you start looking at the items, I don't know whether they're up to date or not, but
They're not. That's one
So-
thing, Monica has let us know, that if we decide on this one, we would have to update some of the criteria in it. So,
And also assign target percentages to each of those And so you almost can't set a target and expect by the time you evaluate him, say set a target tomorrow and evaluate him on those targets by the end of the year, per se.
Yeah, and that was one of my reasons for earlier in the year trying to advocate that we do this soon, because CASB and best practices say that there ought to be at least 6 months between the adoption of the instrument and its application, its use.
But I think contractually, am I correct, Jonathan? We have to evaluate him by June, the end of June? Is that how we did it before? I think it's by the end of June. Because the new contract, the year starts in July.
Mm-hmm, July 1.
So we have to do it by the end of June.
Well, then none of these instruments will work. But there are also some quantitative metrics that were put out by somebody in the district. Adams 14 Governing Board Goals for Superintendent 2017-2018. And they're under 4 categories: district and school performance frameworks, student achievement, technology, highly qualified and effective teacher.
Those were the goals.
What's that?
Those were the goals that the board agreed upon at the beginning,
Okay,
over the summer.
Yeah.
okay, so,
So
Those-
those were in conjunction with the superintendent.
okay, so those could be used.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's important that the board come up with for long-term, and again, it may take us several months to, or I don't know how long, but, if we do this, but I think it still would be good to take one of these 3 models and,
For next year?
well, whenever,
Yeah, because Monica did say we had to update these, and Jonathan, did you find the?
So, Madam Chair, there is not a specific date either in board policy or in the superintendent's contract. It just provides that the superintendent shall be evaluated annually per school year. So,
Okay.
you should strive to complete your evaluation every year as close as you can as appropriate to the end of the school year.
So,
It's not a hard deadline. If you need a little bit of time
Okay.
to complete it, that's allowable, of course.
okay. Any?
Whatever y'all choose, I'm good.
Decide next Tuesday on it. Which one? Right, Monica?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by Tuesday.
It's not on the agenda.
right, so we,
It was only a discussion
What did
item
Dr.
tonight.
Hyde, what is Dr. Hyde going with?
He-
I'm sorry, I
he-
didn't hear. 2?
He thought 2 was good,
Well, I
but
thought last
it's not updated.
last week, we had a consensus of 2 already.
Yeah.
So then that's what we go with.
Well, and Monica was saying tonight when I came in that, since it's old, we'd have to update some of the information in it, the questions,
Do John got a copy of 2?
Yeah.
Can you look at 2 for us, please?
Yeah, I've looked at it before.
Okay.
The board could also make the determination that they could shorten that version as well. Cut some parts out of it
It doesn't apply.
and make it yours. I mean, it's not a document that you have to use from start to finish. You could take pieces out of it to use. You could take stuff out. You could use. I mean, it's up to the board what tool is used.
So we
The
can,
only thing that needs to be done is the board needs to finalize the tool and then take action, right, John, on what the final tool will be.
Correct.
so if we go over that, it shouldn't take us no more than 2 hours to cut.
Yeah, it's just,
Or
And I've said this from the beginning, it's just the board coming together, saying, we want this out, we want to use this, we want this out. I could sit here as you guys are working, tweak it,
'cause it's on
and
the-
then
it's
move
the
on from
spreadsheet.
section to section, yeah.
Okay, so
So I'm suggesting we do some kind of study session to work on the document as a team to get it done.
so
And then, at
Sounds
that
good.
point, once all of the board members are comfortable with what the final tool looks like, it could go to board for a vote,
For a vote on it.
and that'll finalize your tool.
now, do we have to have community input or just the board, or they have, but we can open it up as a study session so the community can listen, but we are the ones who gonna do the work. So they can sit and, you know,
Well, if
that's,
it's a study session, yeah.
Right.
It would be open.
it'd
mean,
be
if you-
open. But I'm just saying, you know how they say.
Even if it's a work
But
session,
we
it's
don't want their
open.
input.
Yeah, but a work session, but I'm just saying, they say we close doors and do stuff behind closed doors. I'm just saying, if we post it and say we doing the evaluation, you know, we doing the worksheet, evaluation of the
We're
superintendent.
putting together the evaluation sheet for the superintendent.
To go on the, yeah, I mean, however y'all word it or put it. So the next question for us is, but Timio ain't here, when can we do it? What's the best day for all of us? Long as it's at 4:30, I'm okay.
Well, for,
As long
you
as it's
think it
4:30?
takes a couple hours, you could start at 6 to 8, any day.
But Dave, I just ran upstairs and got us food.
Well, so I was just telling Jonathan, you need to change that policy.
Well, you can add it to the agenda.
We could amend it.
You can amend it. add it
So,
to- Yeah, if we,
So
but,
not now,
not now, but
it's not an
anyway.
emergency.
But going back to evaluations, I just want to make sure, now this is me, okay, as a teacher, working, thinking, evaluations are not to get rid of people.
Right.
Evaluations are to help a person become a better individual.
Right.
And if we're going to make an evaluation to get rid of people or to get rid of him, I want no part of it.
no, I thought
But
that,
evaluation is make him better. Then if he doesn't comply with what we want, then
yeah,
Well,
but
that's why I
why
kind
we
of like
going over
what
it.
we did last, on this one. That's the one we did, right?
This one, yeah.
Because we set the criteria for him,
right, we
you know.
just, and then the criteria is broad that we can, this,
Mhm.
and this. We didn't actually go into in depth like
Right.
this stuff here, but if that's what we're gonna do, the in-depth part, then let's do it. Let's get it out the way, and let's, you know. So again, what is a good day for everybody?
I think,
What do you think, Monica?
let me, I'm gonna open my calendar. And is this something, you want Dr. Abrego included on? You don't want him part of the actual,
Well, it's
This
gonna be
part
a
of the
study
process?
session.
no, but I mean, do you want him involved or do you not want him involved?
Well, the board has to decide. If he wants to be present, that's fine, but
don't
it's
mind
for
him
the
being
board to discuss.
But that's why I'm saying, do you want him involved in the board's process? He could be there to observe. It's different if you want him involved
Yeah, that is true.
or just present.
I
Madam
think
Chair.
It's just present. That would be my preference, my situation.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, so has the board, were goals, specific written goals set with the superintendent for this school year? There were? Okay. So if that's the case, then you probably should and could use those to populate the criteria on this evaluation. And if they're already determined, then you wouldn't necessarily need to have his input into the
They are
development of it. Yeah, so, that would be the portion of it that he would,
Has Jonathan seen this, Monica?
This is my copy, but
Sure.
you can take a look at it.
It's the one we did.
If you look, the list that we have right there, the one pager, those are fairly, they are all quantifiable, fairly straightforward, objective standards. What we're proposing
But you're gonna go
is
home.
something that's far more involved. It involves 360 reviews in all subject areas. There's 14 different categories. I think I said 34 different items, and it's a big deal. But if we want to really have that available for the future, we need to start now.
Yeah, that's what we're doing, Dr.
Yeah.
Hyde. We trying to, Monica opened up her calendar to see what date that we can
Yeah.
call to come.
Well, I think I thought that Mr. Farrow hadn't seen this and
I haven't seen it.
wasn't sure what the difference was between the two.
So that answers your question though about, whether or not you need to have Dr. Abrego as an active participant in that next meeting. That's the key information right there. So if you want to include him, it's up to you, but
Okay.
that's
So-
what you need is on that form as a starting point.
I'm looking at the calendar, next week.
We're busy.
I know, there's 3 evenings next week for the board.
Yes. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Tuesday board meeting, Wednesday retirement dinner, and Thursday,
Foundation.
education foundation 14er.
Okay.
So I can go the week after.
Well, what about Friday if I could leave work about
So
Since-
Monday and Friday are open.
You mean tomorrow?
27th,
No,
you
no,
mean?
no.
23rd,
See the
Oh,
Cubs.
23rd or 27th.
Did you get tickets already?
Of course.
What they cost you?
So she said the
You gotta put it
23rd or the 27th is open.
And that's
I may not be in town, so
Friday. You might not be in town for next Friday.
27th.
Next Friday.
Oh, that's right, you're gone next week.
What about Monday?
The 23rd?
Yes. Early. I can get off work about.
Anytime after, anytime. I mean,
1 o'clock
On the 23rd?
Monday. 1 o'clock.
This, a week
Ne-
from,
this next Monday?
Next
Oh, wait,
23rd
I
at
have
1
a,
o'clock.
no, I'll be golfing.
if it's at 1 o'clock,
What time? 4 o'clock.
I could probably make it. I
4
do
o'clock?
have an appointment
Yeah, I
at,
think I can get back. I'm golfing way
11:40.
down south.
but you guys can start without me.
I don't know what
No.
time, what times are.
so we can do 1:30
Dave golfing down south. 4:30?
on
1:30,
Monday.
she said 1:30.
Well, Dave gonna be golfing downtown.
Down south.
Down south, 3 o'clock.
What time can you get here?
I honestly can't say because I don't know what time we're teeing off, but I know Monday I'm playing over there at Chatfield and Kimpling.
And what about the 30th? Oh, we have the city council thing, the 30th.
Well, we could do it at 4:30, you should be back by 4:30, right?
Should be.
Monday,
Be getting it close. Depends.
5,
4:30's fine.
4:30?
5 for sure. I'll
Well,
be-
if you don't mind, we can get started without you.
Yeah,
Get
you can get started without me. You don't need
No, if
me.
you tell him that, he won't. I got stuck in traffic. I couldn't. I made a wrong turn.
I'll be calling him. Mr. Rilla.
Some
What
lost, some
time's the
for-
retirement thing?
The retirement dinner is at 6.
I don't think. Did I get an invite? I don't know.
I
Yeah,
didn't-
you
I
did.
haven't.
But
Yeah, they came out through
so 3:30. What time? 4:30. 4:30.
I'm good with
4:30 when?
Monday.
the 23rd, next Monday.
4:30 on the 23rd?
Is that good?
All right.
I say we start at 4.
4. That's perfect. I'll leave
I'm
early.
good. 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock it is.
Will you send me a reminder, Monica?
And that's to go over sample 2 of the evaluation.
And the goal is to knock it out in 2 hours.
The goal is to knock it out in 2 hours.
Okay. Okay.
Is everybody
Come
okay?
prepared.
You okay?
But come prepared.
Come prepared. What you're saying is read the document.
Yeah, well, probably.
Know what you
yeah.
want in the document before.
Deep and so forth, huh?
Excuse me, Dr. Hyde, I'm sorry.
Okay, is everybody
I'm good.
good? 4 o'clock,
Monday,
the 23rd.
At
Go over
4,
to-
not
go over-
4:30, right?
Go over
4?
sample 2, decide what we want.
Yes.
Decide what you want, then majorities. So, okay, I got you.
Gotcha?
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll eliminate
Will we get
what
info,
we want
Monica,
and
on the
add what we
retirement
want.
thing? I don't think
I've sent a calendar invite.
Yep,
okay.
I saw it.
Recently? I'll have to look.
I'll resend it right now.
Okay. Well, I don't always get all my stuff.
So if everybody's good,
Yeah.
we can, we didn't do roll call.
Nope,
It's
you,
done.
you just
we need-
adjourn and.
You can adjourn by acclamation.
Yes.
Go ahead.
What?
Well, there's no objection to an adjournment, so.
Oh, no
wanna
objections.
hit the-
We are gonna adjourn this meeting.
Seeing no
Okay.
and me.